This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Welcome in, everybody. It is Sports Daily here on KFH. It is a Friday, TGIF, I think, on a long week of the sports calendar where we wait for games, but we get Major League Baseball back tonight. I'm Jacob Albracht alongside Tommy Castor. Happy to be here with you on Sports Daily. We will be with you here on KFH for the next 2 hours. You can also catch us on our video stream, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can watch us there, or sometimes maybe just turn on the audio if you're in the office, can't quite get it, want to just leave us a comment. But the IHOP hotline is open if you want to call, 869-1240. Glad to be with you. We got some giveaways today. I hope everybody enjoyed Mission Impossible last night. We sent quite a few folks to a sneak preview there. Mike's already chimed in and say he and his mom loved it. Good thing. We appreciate the feedback there, Mike. Hope everybody did. We'll have some HTO cards for you, some Wichita Wind Surge vouchers for you as we make our way through the next 2 hours. So stay tuned for the opportunity to win those. Glad to be here with you. Again, I'm Jacob Albracht alongside Tommy Castor. Jad Chambers producing. He's answering that IHOP hotline at 869-1240. Tommy, how are you?
Howdy. Good to see you. Happy Friday. Ready for this week to be done. Here we are. It's a Friday, and let's get right into it.
The news we've been waiting on, and it's crazy that we have for about, 2 months now, is here. Quinnen Williams finally gets his deal done with the Jets. It's a lot of money. 4 years, $96 million on an extension, $66 million guaranteed. It's the Jets' largest guarantee in franchise history. It's not a bad number for the Chiefs. It's very attainable for the Chiefs, and we've thought all along that the goal would be to wait on Quinnen Williams, beat Quinnen Williams' deal, and then move on. And that's what we think will happen. Chris Jones, it's been reported forever that he just wants to, he doesn't need to beat Aaron Donald, but he needs to beat the next guy. And Quinnen Williams, that was sort of the wait. It's funny. Chris Jones had a picture on, looks like this is Instagram, maybe, just talking about, it was from the ESPYs. And, then quickly after the Quinnen Williams deal gets done, guess who chimes in with a fingers crossed and a handshake? DeAndre Hopkins. Now, they might have a relationship that I don't know about. Maybe they're close. Maybe they're tight. Maybe it's just hey, I hope you get your deal done now, Chris Jones. Or maybe it's what we've been speculating for a while.
Yeah.
That DeAndre Hopkins hasn't signed anywhere because it's not crunch time, and he's waiting for the Chris Jones deal because I still from the first second we saw it, I was like, he's going to be a Chief. And I honestly, like, I call it a conspiracy theory, call it whatever you want. I think that it's always sort of been this way. And if the Chiefs have been able to say, hang tight, D-Hop, let us get the Chris Jones deal done and we'll have the money to do this. Like, if they had that sort of foresight and that sort of sway with the player, by the way, I mean, that's next level stuff. I think it's coming. I think they're going to get the Jones deal done, like maybe even before the end of the day. Like, I think it's going to come fast, and I think D-Hop's going to be a Chief.
How much crazy faith, if that all pans out, how much crazy faith does DeAndre Hopkins have to have in the Chiefs? And, trust and goodwill built up, basically waiting, not signing with other teams that have given him offers, and basically saying, you know what, I'm going to sit back and I'll wait because, Brett Veach is a master. We all know that. But man, what happens what would have happened if a Chris Jones deal never materialized and then an offer for D-Hop never materialized and then the market comes and goes and D-Hop doesn't have a team? There would still be a team that would sign him for sure, but maybe not at, top value that he's asking for. So there's a lot of faith. If this is true, if this is the way that it all plays out, there's a lot of faith that DeAndre Hopkins is placing in the Chiefs to get a deal done with Chris Jones so then they can go and sign him.
Yeah, it's I don't know how much of it is like I try to think of this. I always try to relate this to like when you're looking for a job, one of the most valuable tools you have is to talk to other people that work there, right? Before you take it. And especially in a fraternity. I mean, they're all in the same union, right? So you got this fraternity where agents represent different people. Like, if the communication to D-Hop from the players is, we love it here, you can trust these guys. If they think they can get it done, it's worth waiting. The other thing, though, too, in reality is what rush is D-Hop in? Like, what hurry is he in, right? Like, I don't know that when he became a free agent, it's not like a lot of situations changed necessarily to dictate who might or might not be interested. So there really isn't a rush. Like, he'd like to get in before training camp, which starts next week. So there's time, right? And even if it's late into training camp, it's probably still okay.
I think that we're probably looking at a signing or a deal done. I mean, maybe by the end of the weekend. I mean, I think it's going to go quick. Considering that
you talking about D-Hop or Chris Jones?
No, Chris Jones. I think a Chris Jones deal will happen here in the next probably 24, 48, 72 hours, somewhere in that time frame. And then that opens the door for D-Hop. But I think they'll have Chris Jones locked up by the time they go to St. Joe for training camp.
Oh, I do too. I think they'll have Chris Jones signed up by then.
Yeah.
I just don't get the impression that there's much animosity. And I know we've sort of thrown that out there because of the mini camp thing. And it's like, well, what are the Chiefs supposed to do if they have to kind of wait on this Quinnen Williams deal? But every time we hear from Chris Jones, it doesn't feel like there's animosity there. So, I think that it sort of depends on how fast they can get it done. But man, you just get this feeling that it's all sort of been a part of a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
If DeAndre Hopkins wanted to go to the Chiefs, and we know that the Chiefs, on the field, impact decision makers, right? The guys that probably have a voice in the front office, at least to some degree, have advocated probably based on, sort of the vibes we've been getting for D-Hop. Who wouldn't? I get it. Why wouldn't you want him, right? So if that's happened and they've been able to talk to each other, and if he's been released, they can, I think, like, just say, hey, man, we'd love to have you. We think that it can get done, but we got to get Chris Jones done first. That'll free up the money to get it done on a 1-year deal. You come here for a year, pad your stats, show you still got it, help us win a Super Bowl. You can go back on the open market and maybe you can get a 2 or 3 year deal next year. It makes too much sense if D-Hop's been willing to wait, and he clearly has been willing to wait to see if the Chiefs can get it done. I think the Chiefs have the interest. That becomes the ultimate question. Like, are the Chiefs interested enough to, basically use all their cap space money remaining after a Chris Jones deal to sign D-Hop. And I don't know why they wouldn't be willing to do that on a 1-year deal. Why? Like, what does that hurt for the franchise at that point? Doesn't hurt anything. And the other key to it is, Tommy, and the only other way that happens is if Patrick Mahomes is willing to wait too, which I think he clearly is. And it's sort of, you remember when that report came out, where it was like, oh, we think Mahomes' deal will get done before the end of the offseason. And then Mahomes kind of like put that to bed a little bit. Like, there is absolutely like no pressure for me to do anything. And I just wonder too, like, does it go even that far back to say, we know Chris Jones needs to get done. Like, that business needs to get done. That's top priority. Maybe for Mahomes, it's like, guys, use that money, go get D-Hop. Let's do mine next year. Like, we'll be fine. And again, if there's that level of trust and everything rotating around that room between, Kelsey saying, I don't care if I'm not the highest paid guy or underpaid, and Mahomes willing to wait, and Chris Jones willing to wait, and D-Hop willing to wait, and everything is just like, that's nuts, man. I don't remember a lot of front offices able to pull that kind of stuff off, but that just goes to what we've talked about, and like, appreciate, if you're a fan of this team, that this doesn't happen, won't happen again. Like, enjoy it while it's here, because it is just very strange in the current world of professional sports to see players in a front office this seemingly in sync.
Right. I think that you can look at, maybe I can think of one other example of something similar to this. Like, Tom Brady, there were players that wanted to play with him, like he was always in lockstep with Rob Gronkowski for a long time. But then, he would go recruit players to, come and join. Like, I remember when he went to Tampa Bay and Antonio Brown, which ultimately didn't end well, but he's recruiting him, and Antonio Brown's living with him for a while. Like, there are some similarities there, but I think what makes this so interesting with D-Hop is that there are relatively few players in the NFL that you can look at and you can say, if we sign this person, they will make an immediate impact on our roster from day one, as opposed to, hey, this is a really talented player, but this player has got to fit in our system and with our current depth chart and whatever. Like, honestly, it wouldn't matter if the Chiefs already had the number 1 wide receiver room in the NFL or the number 30 wide receiver room in the NFL. D-Hop is a game changer regardless. And, so it's kind of like, and I'm not trying to equate D-Hop to Shohei Ohtani. It's different, like, big time, but like Shohei Ohtani, all 30 teams would want him. Right. And I think that that's kind of close to similar with D-Hop. Like, all 30 teams, I think if you were to pull them, the majority of them would say, yeah, we'd love to have, that guy talent wise on our roster. Right. But for Kansas City, it's one of those like, hey, we can plug him in right now alongside our current roster, and he can go be a game changer for us immediately offensively.
It has made too much sense from the beginning, right? Because D-Hop needs a stopgap. It's the Juju Smith-Schuster situation all over again.
Right.
Needs a little bit of a reset to reset his own market. He's been durable over the years for the most part. It's a fit because it's like a no-risk situation to the Chiefs. What is the risk in signing D-Hop? That it hinders the development of Justin Ross?
Right.
That Richie James gets pushed out. I mean, for real, I'm not even being like that's
Justin
the reality.
Watson goes back down to the practice squad.
Yeah, like there's
almost
no risk for the Chiefs in signing D-Hop because I don't feel like it inhibits in any way the development of Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, or Rashee Rice. Like, doesn't at all. Different players will do different things, would be asked to do different things, right? It's not like all of a sudden one of those guys who are just different types of players are all of a sudden going to be your get 'em ball guys, right? Which is what D-Hop is, as good as anybody is, right?
Oh, and by the way, not only does D-Hop kind of need, you would think, a reset year to get back, to get another contract with another team, he also never has won a Super Bowl. So, I mean, that's sure. Obviously a major pull for it as well, where, yeah, like, I could see him having interest in going and being, a star with Tennessee or with the Patriots. I know the Bills have had interest in him, but if you're looking at a 1-year deal, why wouldn't you want to sign with Kansas City where you can be catching balls and touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes the entire season, reloading to be able to go and win a Super Bowl, and then maybe go out and get another contract?
Well, because I think, I mean, to play devil's advocate, I think there's a better chance he puts up in totality bigger numbers in Tennessee than he does in Kansas City, because Travis Kelce's there, because they spread the ball around. That is the way this new offense is designed now to beat the two deep safeties, is to spread the ball around that way and kind of take what you can get. But I think he would be able to highlight stylistically what he still has in the tank, right? Because will he have as many catches as if he goes to Kansas City as if he would in Tennessee? I would guess no.
He might.
Now they'll throw
Depends,
it.
I mean, because you would think
they'll
the Chiefs
throw
are
it
going to prioritize him.
Well, they'll throw it a ton more. So just naturally, like if Patrick Mahomes is going to throw it 50 times a game. Ryan Tannehill's probably going to throw it maybe 30. So just by that theory, it could end up being that way. But he's not going to like walk into Kansas City and be this clear-cut this clear-cut alpha like he could be in Tennessee, where he's competing with like Treylon Burks, right? So I think that it just will allow him to stay healthy, which will matter, which Kansas City would offer that ability, because you would be able to maybe, not be leaned on as much. So reestablish that, hey, I'm still like fine, I'm durable. It would establish his ability to, not that I think there's ever been any of this in question with him, but like this team player that's willing to do whatever it takes, right? I'm going to come in here and I'm going to be like the best locker room guy ever.
Yeah.
And it allows him to show that one skill that he has that I think he'll always have, which is the ability to go get a ball. And I don't know if he's capable of doing some of the things he used to be doing. I have no idea. Maybe he is. I mean, he could be, but why not try it with Patrick Mahomes, right? If anybody's going to give you your best chance to be your best self, it's Patrick Mahomes, even if they do spread the ball around. If he's able to go in there and catch 70, 80 balls, like, okay.
Who's quarterbacking Tennessee next year? Ryan Tannehill. Is he back? Is he going to be the quarterback
He's
next
back,
year for the Titans? I mean, would you rather have Mahomes throw you the ball or Tannehill throw you the ball?
Sure. And Tannehill's old, but Tannehill's not awful. Like, Tannehill's fine. I'd rather have Tannehill right now than Mac Jones and the Patriots offense.
Sure.
And that's nothing against Mac Jones. It's more against the Patriots coaching staff. But like, I just, it has always made sense, but it never made dollars and cents, because you're like, well, they can't afford it, right? Like, that was the thing. It's like, well, yeah, they'd love to have Hopkins. He'd love to be there, but they got no cap space. Chris Jones, by all accounts, in a restructure will free up that cap space. Patrick Mahomes is not particularly worried about his contract. Travis Kelce is not particularly worried about his contract. That's all you really care about, right? Those are the three guys that you need in the short term to take care of if you're Brett Veach. So if those three guys are taken care of and you got, $15 million sitting around, just match the Odell Beckham money, well, go for it. Like, if you don't have to have that money to get a Patrick Mahomes deal done or a Travis Kelce deal done, why wouldn't you go bring in DeAndre Hopkins? It would be, here's the other interesting thing about it to me, unless I'm forgetting somebody, Tommy, it would be a weapon unlike Mahomes has ever had, right? He's had Tyreek Hill. He's had arguably the best receiver in the game for a long time. But again, very different player. He's never really had a receiver with the skill set of DeAndre Hopkins. Like, maybe they don't have to run fake huddle plays and all this wacky and weird stuff. Maybe they can just toss one up every once in a while.
Well, and that's going to be the most intriguing thing if they can actually get a deal done with Hopkins and bring him in is, there's been this narrative that's been created about Patrick Mahomes where, and it's completely wrong and fabricated and not accurate at all. But, I've heard people call him a gimmick quarterback and, backyard playground quarterback and things like that, and I've heard like actual people say that before, where, it's got to be the crazy plays and the, no look passes and left-handed throws and things like that. I would love to see him have a weapon like DeAndre Hopkins, where, like you said, he can just go throw one up and let Hopkins go get it, because we know he's got the arm strength to do it. We've never seen, the Chiefs have a a wide receiver room. Yeah, they had Tyreek Hill, who is incredibly talented, but have a solid enough wide receiver room with traditional receivers like DeAndre Hopkins. And even MVS can do that to an extent, not at the level of D-Hop, but you've got somebody, if you can bring in a D-Hop, that will allow Mahomes to be able to make some more standard throws.
Mahomes is a backyard quarterback because he can be. That doesn't,
Yeah.
and I hate, I hate D-Hop.
I heard that from what's that guy's name? Jason Brown from Last Chance U. I mean, that was the big narrative
who cares
a few months
what that
ago.
guy has to
I don't.
say?
I'm just saying, like,
why does anybody care what that guy has
it's
to say?
in the public narrative that there's this feeling that from some folks that he's a backyard gimmick quarterback. I don't agree with it. I don't think that's true.
Goofball who
You're right.
who had a good year of junior college football.
You're right.
Who's trying to make people pay attention to him. Right? Maybe. I just like. We're talking about this like it's for sure happening, and it's certainly not for sure happening. But man, sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's been a lot of smoke from day one of DeAndre Hopkins' flirtation with free agency that the Chiefs would be the team. It's always made too much sense to me. And if they can get this Chris Jones deal done now quickly, and again, this all happens, Quinnen Williams, that's what everybody's been waiting on with the Jets. He got his deal. He reset the market for the next guy behind Aaron Donald. Now the Chiefs can just go get that deal done with Chris Jones. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Here's you're making more than Quinnen Williams. You're between Quinnen Williams and Aaron Donald. We need to figure out what this looks like so that we can free up. Hey, D-Hop, how much do you need? 15 million? You need to match the Odell Beckham? All right. So here's how this contract looks. We're going to do that. We're going to free up the 15 mil, and we're going to go get D-Hop done. We don't have any cap space. We don't care. We'll put Andy Reid back there at running back if we have to, and we'll be fine. And we'll be just
watch Chris Jones. That deal, I think, will be done by the end of the weekend. Keep an eye out on that.
Oh, I do too. I think they've had it done for a while. They just had to speculate on what the Williams deal would be done. 869-1240 is the IHOP hotline. What do you think, Chiefs fans? You ready to get D-Hop in there? You think this is going to happen? We'll have more on that throughout the show. The IHOP hotline is open, 869-1240. Let's give away some Wind Surge tickets on the way out here. 4-pack of vouchers. You can pick the game of your choice. The voucher's good for any of them. Go see the Surge on us here at Sports Daily and KFH. We'll be right back.
97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Did you know that you can now listen to all of your favorite teams, stations, shows, and even podcasts all on the Odyssey app? Download it now.
Oh, okay, take it easy. We're going on the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Congratulations to Jeremy for winning those Wind Surge vouchers, courtesy of us here at Sports Daily. Glad to be able to do that for folks. Tommy, we're talking the Quinnen Williams deal and its impact on the Kansas City Chiefs, which, will be big. We've thought for a long time. The general consensus has been that. We'll see if everybody was right. It doesn't feel like there's been contention or anything like that. I suppose there's still a chance that it gets complicated and maybe isn't as simple as we thought, but they've had a long time to talk about it while they wait for Quinnen Williams. They had to have some idea what the number would be.
Right. And there were reports not that long ago that Chris Jones specifically, allegedly, was waiting for a Quinnen Williams deal to be done. That was the guy. It wasn't just like, oh, he's waiting to see if other defensive tackles get contracts or what. It was specifically the Quinnen Williams deal. That was the reporting. And so, I don't know why that would be the reporting if it wasn't, accurate. So now that that's done, I'm sure that the, representatives for Chris Jones and Brett Veach, they have, I would guess, a framework of a contract already put together. It's just a matter of figuring out exactly what the number is and how that compares to Quinnen Williams. It's going to break down to the number of years. It's going to break down to the amount of guaranteed money. Because as we've talked about at length before, this is more than likely the final large contract that Chris Jones is probably going to garner in his career. And so, making sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. It just seems to me that this is trending and has been trending in the direction of getting this done very quickly now that the Quinnen Williams deal is taken care of.
Yeah, I agree. I just, even if they don't get D-Hop, like even if maybe and I think the scenario exists where somebody could outbid the Chiefs for D-Hop, like the Titans, who have apparently and reportedly been very aggressive. But like, if you're DeAndre Hopkins, he's an interesting player. Like if you try to guess at like what would be the most beneficial for him to get another big contract, which I think is unlikely no matter what he does, by the way, because of his age and the trends in the NFL and what they've been like. He's 31, Tommy. Like, I don't know, if the Texans came in and offered him a 2-year deal, right? Like, let's say the Chiefs offer him 1 year and $15 million, and the Titans offer him 2 years and $22 million. There are ways that this may not work out. I don't know what the right play would be for DeAndre Hopkins, because go and look historically, like guys after they turn 31, it's all downhill. And I don't know. And that may be okay. Like maybe you take your 15 mil this year and maybe you're content to take a much smaller amount next year, which, by the way, would benefit the Chiefs if that was and
that's what makes the D-Hop situation different than Juju, because of just the age difference, right? Like Juju was on a prove it deal. The Chiefs have done that before. Sammy Watkins was on a prove it deal when he came to Kansas City. The age is a little bit different for DeAndre Hopkins. I think it comes down to, what does Hopkins prioritize? Does Hopkins prioritize going and competing for a championship right away? Does he prioritize longevity and getting a more long-term contract, even, one more year from another team? Because I really don't, there's not a scenario that plays out in my mind where the Chiefs are going to be willing to give DeAndre Hopkins more than a year, right? Like this is more of like a prove it kind of contract, right? So it depends on what Hopkins wants to prioritize. And that's really going to come down to, I think, the decision that he ends up making.
I mean, there have been, 30-year-old receivers and older that have had great seasons. Most of them have come, though, in like age 30 seasons. Uh, it's just a really difficult thing to evaluate. And the other thing is, too, that makes this a little bit harder, I think, is young receivers are plentiful now, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. And this has really gotten worse lately than it used to be. Like we used to see 30-year-old receivers and older be fine for a while, right? But the game is changing so much for whatever reason. I don't know. It's been a little slower going. I think the other thing to consider about the Chiefs is if it goes really well, right? And you're DeAndre Hopkins and like it's perfect fit and all these things. I mean, the opportunity to come back to Kansas City is on the table
for
too,
sure.
Right? And so
that happened with Sammy Watkins, right? He did a 1-year deal and then he re-signed for another 1-year deal. And I think that the Chiefs, as recently as a couple of months ago, like right before free agency started, I think they would have been willing to bring back Juju for another 1-year deal. Now, ultimately, Juju was going to want to go get paid somewhere. And I think he did with New England. And that's probably better off for Kansas City now that you've got DeAndre Hopkins on the market and things like that. But it's not unprecedented for the Chiefs, at least, to sign receivers to a 1-year deal and then re-sign them again.
So Juju right now, he signed here's what Juju got. He got a I'm trying to look at the exact number. 25, 3 years, 25 million, right? He didn't get a massive deal. He got 16 million guaranteed. But look at his production. Like he wasn't, I don't care what anybody says. They needed him. He did a great job, but he was not that productive in Kansas City.
But isn't he going to probably go to New England and be the number 1 receiver, at least for this first year? I mean, who else do they have in the wide receiver room in New England? I mean, off the top of my head, I don't even know who their wide receivers are necessarily that Mac Jones is throwing to. So, I mean, I think it's that longevity. It's a 3-year deal.
They still have Devontae Parker, Tyquan Thornton.
True.
I mean, it's a thin room. It's a thin room for sure. But
so I bet he'll go in there and be the number 1.
Who did the Chiefs have last year? He was number 1 last year in Kansas City.
What's
that going to look like?
Was he the number 1 receiver in Kansas City last year?
Outside of Travis Kelce?
What I mean, okay, you compare him. I mean, I'm thinking of Kelce for sure. I mean, he's not the true number 1 receiver in Kansas City. That belongs to Travis Kelce. So that's my point. He wasn't number 1 in Kansas City.
Yeah, but look. I got no beef against Juju Smith-Schuster. At one point, he was one of my favorite players in the league. I just like there was this narrative that he was incredible last year in this key cog, and I'm like, guys, he had, that's not the case. He averaged 60 yards a game, which is okay, right? But like, what if? Because what was
he was almost 1,000-yard receiver. He was almost 1,000-yard receiver.
Yep, in a 17-game season, he sure was at 60 yards a game.
With Travis Kelce as the key target for Patrick Mahomes.
New England's going to throw to the tight ends a lot with Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. I don't know what anybody expects. I don't even know why we got into this. I just like if Juju was he was going to be and I loved, by the way, and had advocated for 2 years that the Chiefs signed Juju Smith-Schuster. Let's be perfectly honest about that. It always made a ton of sense to me, and it worked, right? It worked. It was fine. It was great. It helped them win a Super Bowl. He had some games where they absolutely had to have him. But it's not like they're trying to, replace this massive hole in their offense. What I'm saying is DeAndre Hopkins can come in there and have a much bigger impact than Juju Smith-Schuster had last year. Much bigger. Like his impact on the offense could be far greater. And quite frankly, I don't know that the Chiefs needed either of those guys to win a Super Bowl, and they may not anyway. Right. But
I mean, I'm just comparing the wide receiver room last season for Kansas City compared to what they're going to have, and let's assume that Hopkins goes to Kansas City. I mean, you're looking at a room of Hopkins,
Well, it becomes
as
one of the best in the league.
Right. Hopkins is the number one. I think you could probably slot in Sky Moore at number 2. MVS might be your third receiver. Kadarius Toney. Forgot about Toney. I mean, Toney's up
He'd
there
be
too.
2.
He'd be number 2. But then compared to last year, I mean, you've got Juju, MVS, Justin Watson was number 3. McCole Hardman was number 4. Then Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney only played a few games, and that was it. I mean, those were that's the total number of wide receivers that caught passes from Patrick Mahomes last season. Of course, you had tight ends and running backs, but it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total receivers. And that's counting Kadarius Toney, who was only part of the team for a handful of games. So you're looking at a much, much, much deeper and, I mean, significantly improved wide receiver room. Honestly, even if DeAndre Hopkins doesn't sign with Kansas City.
That's what I was going to say. The room to me is so much more dynamic. It may not be as sure a thing, because that's one thing Juju did add to the equation, right? Is you can count on it. You can, he's durable. He's been there, whatever. But the dynamic nature of that room this year is pretty fascinating. There's not a more impactful Jekyll and Hyde type player maybe than Kadarius Toney. Who knows? He might play 2 games. I mean, we don't know. But if he does, they have so many run after the catch guys right now. It's a little wild. And they had that in McCole Hardman too, right? I think that they're coming into it, like you just said, even without DeAndre Hopkins, in such a better place. I think it's just a better room. McCole Hardman was very valuable to the Chiefs in different ways, but he never became. Look, they drafted him out of desperation because they didn't know what was going to happen with Tyreek Hill. They needed to fill a role, and he had a nice run in Kansas City. Like him, like his personality, but he's not a commanding wide receiver. I don't think he's going to be. They have the potential to have those guys now, but they also have in all 3 of Toney and Moore and Rice, these really interesting, versatile, move them around the formation kind of guys. I mean, Sky Moore has a chance to be a more traditional receiver, I think. We didn't get to see a lot of that last year, but I think that's where his upside is. But man, you throw DeAndre Hopkins into that mix, and I just picture the Chiefs in the red zone. And you're going to have to double either Kelsey or Hopkins. But that means you can't double the other one, right?
Right.
So you're getting one-on-ones one way or the other with either Travis Kelsey or DeAndre Hopkins on just about every drop back that you take in the red zone, with Patrick Mahomes throwing them the ball.
I wonder. I mean, you remember the years that you had Travis Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, and it was kind of the same thing where defenses couldn't double both of them. How is the combo potentially of Kelsey and Hopkins overall going to be compared to the duo of Kelsey and Hill?
Let's talk about that next. I think it'll be very different, but in an interesting way. We'll talk about it. 869-1240, the IHOP hotline's open. We're speculating here on a Friday. DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs. We've thought it to be so for a long time, and boy, the planets are aligning. More on that. The Sports Daily rolls forward on a Friday. Tommy asked the question right before we went to break. How would DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce combination be the same or different or compared to a Tyreek Hill combination there? And I think it would be very different. I think it would be better in the red zone and not as good, in between the 20s, basically. But I also think that for what the room looks like currently, that's okay, because I think between the 20s is where they're insanely dynamic this year, where they weren't last year as much. And then in the red zone, you get that opportunity. I still like I picture the red zone, or I picture third down conversions, right? Third down offense. When you can't double both Kelce and D-Hop, when you know one of those guys is going to get a one-on-one in some capacity, that's where I think it's different, because Tyreek Hill is just going to stretch the field and move around and do things for the entire offense that, probably no other player in football can do. So if you're asking me, would I rather have Tyreek Hill or DeAndre Hopkins, I'd rather have Tyreek Hill. But I do think that with the current, structure of the roster, Hopkins is absolutely, because there's not a lot of receivers right outside of the very best in the league that you could go cherry pick and say, oh, this guy's going to make this team better. And he's really not going to impact, I don't think, the development of these other young guys. There aren't a lot of players like that. He's one of them, I think.
I think there are also a percentage of throws from Patrick Mahomes that we've seen in years past where, we know how good he is at extending plays, keeping plays alive with his feet, where, he has thrown the ball away, where really, if Hopkins is on the field, I think Mahomes could make the argument, hey, I'm just going to throw it up and see if he can come get it, as opposed to throwing it away on plays that are being extended.
And that doesn't fit the Chiefs. I mean, they're still going to try to not turn the ball over, right? They still need some component of ball control, I think.
But you feel more trusting of having Hopkins on the field to go and do that than you would with any of the other current receivers that are currently there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it too, like, we saw the Chiefs react first, right, to the way that defenses were playing, which suppressed offensive production last year. The Chiefs were ahead of that because it happened to them 2 years ago. I also think we could see something this year that is another thing that has like a league-wide impact that would be one of those copycat things. Like if they have, and they're going to have this anyway, so we may see it, no matter what, is formationally where these three potential receivers and Tony and Moore and Rashee Rice like line up and what they do with them all at the same time. If you're going to run two deep safeties like that, I feel like that's going to give you hell, because how do you can't play that far off the ball with these guys getting it in space. Now, that's dependent on Kadarius Toney being on the field, which has been a problem for him, and Sky Moore taking the step that, advocates of his like me think that he needs to take in this season, that we began to see late in the season last year. He was a little blocked last year. It doesn't feel like he's going to be that way this year, and hopefully they don't have him trying to return punts anymore or kicks. And then Rashee Rice, we don't know, he is a rookie. We don't really know anything about that yet and how that's going to work. But I don't think DeAndre Hopkins, again, like it just doesn't, he's not going to impact that. Like he won't have much of a, it's almost like it's a different position. It feels like a little bit for what they'll be able to do with him. And man, if I'm 31 and I don't want to sit there and just get banged around all the time, and like it just makes so much sense to me. So does the Titans, though. And that's what, it seems like a foregone conclusion because of the timing of it all. But there are places where he'll have, I do think, ample opportunities to just go be the more traditional number one wide receiver. I think he'd have the opportunity to do that in either New England or Tennessee. It really just comes down to like a preference for DeAndre Hopkins. Like, are you willing to be this free agent, hired hand gunslinger? A gunslinger, not a quarterback, but you know what I mean? Like teams coming in to just pop you into the roster. I mean, if that's the case, then go to the Chiefs. If you want a longer-term deal.
Yeah. That argument of going to Tennessee or New England to go and be the guy, yeah, that makes sense on paper. But also you become the guy that defenses have to target and will double you nonstop, which, I mean, Hopkins is used to that in his career. That's happened a lot. But, man, wouldn't it be nice for him to go to Kansas City where they've got to choose between him and Travis Kelce, and maybe he does get some more one-on-one looks? I mean, that's got to be appealing too.
Well, it's appealing. I mean, you just go play with Mahomes. You can end the conversation right there. You get to go play with Mahomes and Andy Reid. Okay, sign me up. Everybody would like to do that. They just might now get a way to do it financially. 869-1240. On the way out, let's give away. It's going to be another hot one here today before maybe some storms this evening. Let's give away some iced tea here. We'll give away 2 free iced tea cards. Beat the Heat. HTO East or West, 13th and Tyler West, 21st and 127th East. More than 25 flavors. Go cool off on us here. Jad will get us the winner. We'll come back hour number 2. Anything else from Big 12 Media Days that stands out to us? The Shohei Ohtani trade scenario. Oh, boy. We'll have it all coming for you in the next hour, Sports Daily.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It's hour number 2 of Sports Daily. It's TGIF edition. Glad to have you with us. Glad to have some giveaways for you. We're almost through this week where we don't have much going on, and then that's it. That's pretty much it for the rest of the year where we don't have much going on. We have a lot going on. We've got TBT next week. Talked to the Morris twins yesterday, Tommy. Just for a minute, they did a little media junket sort of ahead of the tournament. They seemed to be in good spirits. I didn't realize this. They had coached a team in TBT like 4 years ago, so they're not, they're not inexperienced in this. That roster might be, but they're not. If the planets align, Tommy, in the TBT, so basically in Wichita, you've got two regionals kind of being played at the same time. Wichita State and KU are in different ones, and we're going to not include K-State in this part of the equation because just, talent wise and star wise, those two have just a little bit more than K-State, although K-State has some experience now. So they are very interesting in this. But you've got the Mass Street, like regional basically, and then the Aftershocks regional. If both of those teams are able to win that and they come back and play that super regional game in a couple of weeks on like a Tuesday night, that is going to be, I'm telling you, that's probably going to end up being like one of those all-time type environments at Coke Arena. Like that place will go nuts. It should be fun. If you haven't seen that Mass Street, you're a KU guy. If you haven't looked at that roster, I mean, it's star-studded, man.
Loaded. Yeah, I mean, just the players that are on
and
it.
That doesn't always mean a lot in the
No,
TBT.
right.
We know that, but at least like from a fan experience, that part of it'll be fun. And then, of course, the Aftershocks have become one of the best teams in that tournament. They've got so much familiarity there that you just sort of expect big things from them now. So that's next week. Here we go. Like games are starting on like Wednesday next week. I think Mass Street plays Wednesday. Wichita State and K-State, I think, play Thursday. So that one will be a lot of fun. That's next week. And of course, training camp right around the corner as well. So we're making our way through here. The other thing that will just sort of linger throughout the rest of the summer is Major League Baseball. And we've got a lot of interesting things happening across the sport that'll be, I think, big time storylines. Something that, I was just looking around at, a lot of the mid-season reporting. CBS Sports did put something out recently, which is really interesting to me. We haven't talked a lot about the rule changes since the beginning of the season. Listen to some of these numbers, Tommy, for Major League Baseball. We know that batting average and runs are up and stolen bases and all that, but you know what else is up? Attendance. The amount of time people are watching games, the amount of people watching games. Tommy, attendance is up 8% year over year in Major League Baseball. 8%. Ratings are up at least 3%. And that's with the regional sports networks right now in, just like chaos mode. The way that it's really hard to watch Major League Baseball games for some reason. And even with that, ratings are up, attendance is up. I guess on MLB.TV, people are watching games for longer, which is interesting because game times have gone down. 86% of people surveyed by Major League Baseball between 18 and 34 said they're more likely to watch baseball now with these rule changes. You want to talk about hitting a home run, to use a metaphor. I was pretty blown away by that. I've found myself watching more baseball, but it's because, the Rangers are good, right? It's interesting. I wonder how much there's a Shohei Ohtani effect on that. But you can't watch. Again, this is a problem for baseball. I can't watch Shohei Ohtani. I can't watch him play unless I want to pay a tremendous amount of money to go get MLB.TV. So it's interesting. The rule changes appear to be working for Major League Baseball. People are going out to the ballpark. People are watching. They're tuning in. And I've said it for a long time. You've got to speed up these games. It's just you can't commit to that kind of thing in this fast-paced world anymore. And I think baseball got this one really, really right. And we never give Rob Manfred credit for anything, Tommy. He probably deserves some credit for this, for spearheading this and implementing it and getting it done.
Yeah, there's a lot about Rob Manfred that I don't support and that I don't like and that I don't think he's done a good job in. But, this is one of them. And I know it's a combined effort between him and the Players Association and all of that for agreeing to these rules, because it's made the sport so much more watchable, more enjoyable, faster paced, all of that. I'm not sure that, at this point, midway through the season, you talk to many fans who say, oh, I don't like any of the changes that were made. Like the majority of people, and that statistic you brought up proves that, hey, this is working and this is the right way to go for Major League Baseball.
I'm so happy for it. I hope that it continues. It will be good for everybody. It's like, could you imagine this summer resurgence, Tommy, of Major League Baseball, just nationwide, and how much fun that would be? So I hope it's coming. One of the big reasons is Shohei Ohtani, though. We're all interested in Shohei Ohtani. His name at the trade deadline is one we never thought we'd hear. It is this dynamic. I don't remember with a player a dynamic like this, where the Angels, from an on-the-field perspective, of course they should trade him, right? Unless they really think they can get him to come back. But even then, I think you could have a pretty honest conversation with him and be like, Shohei, we want to be as aggressive as any team in the offseason. You want to go try to chase a ring here for half a season and then, we'll bring you right back. Are you okay with that? I think you could have an honest conversation to, assuage any of that concern. And if he said, nah, I don't really want to do that, you'd be like, okay, we're not trading you. That's fine. Right. Like, because you wouldn't at that point. Like if it inhibits in any way their possibility of re-signing him in the offseason, you obviously don't do it. They may, though, not be able to do it anyway. And they probably have a pretty good feeling on that. From a purely baseball perspective, Mike Trout's out for a little while. I mean, you trade him because the package would be massive for teams that feel like they can get a leg up in free agency if they go get him now. Yankees. Buster Olney came on yesterday and was like, the top teams 1 through 4 are all the Yankees. And he also mentioned the Rangers and the Rays, which is interesting. The Rays would probably have an amazing package of players, but the Rays aren't going to re-sign. I mean, they have no chance to sign Shohei Ohtani in the offseason.
Yeah.
The Rangers would, and so would the Yankees. And I'll bet you if they put him on the market, there'd be a lot of other teams that would be interested all of a sudden because, the Mets, the Dodgers, probably the Phillies, the Red Sox. Like, there's a lot of teams, the Cubs, that would say, yeah, we're going to make a serious run at him this offseason. We can afford it, especially with attendance up and all these things. It will be a really interesting dynamic because then on the other side, from a baseball perspective, it makes sense. But man, then you got to tell your fans, hey, we're gonna raise the white flag on Ohtani. Like, this is it. We can't get him re-signed in the offseason. We're gonna get what we can for him. Sorry. That's a tough sell.
Yeah, I wonder how many teams are out there. And I know you listed a couple of them. And we've talked about, speculating these teams before, but that would truly be willing to give up, a substantial package of prospects for essentially a rental, right? And there are probably some teams out there that would do that for Shohei Ohtani, knowing that more than likely they're not going to be able to re-sign him. Like, let's say the Rays. I mean, you brought up the Rays. Like, they have had such a ton of success in developing young players and building up their entire organization. And they would have to give up a haul to get Shohei Ohtani for a pennant race. And then, who knows if the Rays, and I doubt it, like, they don't spend money. Like, they're not going to be able to put together more than likely a financial package to sign Shohei Ohtani long-term. So you're going all in for a couple of months of this dynamic player to try to win a pennant, try to win a World Series, knowing that you're not going to sign him long-term. That's where it becomes really interesting. Like, I wonder if we're more likely to see teams go all in on him that really feel like they can sign him long-term in the offseason versus a team that truly is just going to grab him for a rental.
I think it depends on the asking price more than anything in that. If the trade market doesn't command your top prospects for Ohtani on a rental, which, rentals don't really command that very often, if at all, anymore. But for him, I think that if you're the Angels,
it's different, right?
It probably could.
Yeah.
And there
because
are
then
teams,
what happens? Like, let's use the Rays for as an example, or even the Rangers as an example. If they bring him in for a couple of months, they go all in, they don't win at all, and then they don't get to re-sign him, and they've given up a ton of prospects to do so. Man, I think that you have to look back on that as maybe a failure and like a bad idea to do that.
A short term, I don't know that it's a bad idea. I think that you can, because it also, you can use it as a bargain. You can, use it as the ability to get early bargaining on a long-term deal. So it's not, I think it's a worthwhile gamble for some organizations. For the Rangers, is it a worthwhile gamble? Absolutely. Yes, it is. Because they have done a really nice job in free agency anyway. And I'm not sure, like, they've got players that they hope make an impact at the big league level. Don't misunderstand. But at the same time, not in the immediate future. And they've got a window here based on what they've done in free agency the last few years to win right now, right? So I think it makes a lot of sense for them. I also think they just built a new ballpark. They've got fans back interested. They're selling out some select series this season. Boy, it's a Cowboys town. It always will be. But in, that 10, 11, 12, 13, their attendance was incredible. And now without the threat of hospital inducing heat, if you go to a baseball game,
Right.
I really think you could just throw attendance through the roof. Right. So it makes sense in that regard too. Because it really becomes, if you're willing to give up prospects, it's like who's going to be willing to pay. I mean, I saw it was the AP or somebody poll a bunch of players on what they thought Ohtani was going to be worth. And the most common number a lot of times was 10 years, 600 million. He's going to be 30, right? There is about zero chance, as there always is in baseball, that contract would work out for the life of it. You'd have an Albert Pujols situation for sure, even with Ohtani, right? He's not doing what he's doing now until he's 40. Not going to happen. So it blows my mind too. If the asking price is 10 years, 600 million, by the way, because the general thought was, well, he's worth 30 as a hitter and 30 as a pitcher. Okay. Why don't teams ever front load those deals, Tommy? Because then the burden is much less later because it's fully guaranteed. You owe the money in Major League Baseball. But why not make it worth 80 at the beginning and then scale that back? But oftentimes they do it the other way, and then you're on the hook later, and it hamstrings you. So I don't know.
It depends upon the franchise and how cash poor they are, in that moment. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, teams kind of kick the can down the road and say, okay, well, we're just going to defer this, and we'll revisit it in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever, restructure it. That happens all the time. So rather than just giving, a ton of money on the front end, a lot of times they'll defer those contracts and backload them that way in hopes that they can then restructure it. Teams get into trouble with that sort of thing all the time with players. But I think that's, in a lot of cases, they're trying to move money around and try to make things work. And especially if you're Ohtani and you're going to garner that much money, a lot of teams, even the ones with the big payrolls, are probably going to have to get creative.
So you got to imagine, though, I think the Yankees, after expenses, on some reports that you see, make $470 million in ticket sales. That's just ticket sales, by the way. That doesn't equate TV, doesn't equate merch, doesn't equate whatever. I don't think. That's just tickets. So you're making $470 million in tickets. When you think about that kind of stuff, that's where Ohtani, it's like, okay, you can justify the cost here because he is going to be a draw. People will come just to watch him play. Even if you're not good, they will. I think you can justify the cost if you're a lot of organizations. It's going to hamstring you late. You just got to be willing to accept that. But he has become this player that, I think Barry Bonds, I don't think I'm forgetting about anybody. I think it'd probably be Barry Bonds very late in his career that had that same sort of impact, right? That same sort of must-see TV. And how long has that been? That's been 15 years now. 15 years? Is that about right? 2000, 2008 was that
2008
year?
Yeah.
So 15. So every 15 years, if it's been a long time since we've had a player like that. And he is that. And he may even be more by the time it's all said and done. There's going to be a lot of teams that you don't expect that are going to get in a bidding war on that. Like Seattle for sure is.
Yeah.
There will be more of those, I think, than there normally would be for
I think
Aaron Judge.
It's got to be a West Coast team outside of maybe the Yankees. As far as I'm concerned, long term. I think that it's you're looking at the Dodgers or the Giants or the Padres. They never shy away from big
Why
stars
West
and
Coast,
a
do you
lot of
think?
money. Well, I think that he's used to the West Coast, and Seattle, I think, is part of that conversation too.
Yeah, but I think Seattle. I mean, they're West Coast, but you got like Seattle. If the West Coast is Southern California, Seattle has a history with Japanese players with Ichiro. Texas signed Yu Darvish. Texas won the Yu Darvish contest. Remember that? Like Texas head coach Uehara there for a little bit. Like they've got a little bit of history with Japanese players too. Obviously, the Yankees do with Hideki Matsui. The Mets do right now, and the Cubs have signed the other two big-time Japanese stars the last couple of years. I think, and who knows, right, what Shohei Ohtani will be interested in. I have no idea. There's always been an indication that it was the Dodgers to lose, which but that to me, Tommy, is a little interesting as well, because the Dodgers are going to sell out games no matter what, right? So the Yankees are going to sell out games no matter what they do, right? Because they're always going to spend enough on the roster to be competitive and have fans interested. It's those teams that might not sell out normally that become really interesting to me for his services, because he could push them to that point. And then the money you're making is absurd, right? You're getting your TV money, you're selling out games, you're selling all the merchandise, you've got the most popular player in the world, which he will be and maybe already is. Everybody's fascinated by him. That's a lot of pressure on him too, by the way, which kind of sucks. Like I hate that part of it. Like anything can happen. And he has shouldered the burden very, very well so far. Maybe better than baseball players normally or ever have. He has shouldered that burden very well. I hope that continues to happen, and there's good fortune mixed in with that, because you're getting to that point where it's like, it's almost like that jinx. Oh, it could go wrong. Like there's a little of that creeping in, and you're like, don't even like let's just enjoy it and not like. It's nerve wracking, man. I can't imagine that sort of pressure. He seems to handle it perfectly, though. I mean, maybe that's because he doesn't have the big contract weighing into it yet. But if you're making, 10 years, $600 million, if that's the number, and that's always sort of where I've landed with it, was 30 for each, even though he's probably more valuable than 30 as a hitter. Right. And that's probably about right as a pitcher. I do think that's probably a good number. Back to the Angels trading him, though.
The longer that this goes on, and like I remember the Aaron Judge situation, and I remember us talking about it at the time. And at least for me, there was never a moment that I thought Aaron Judge was going to go somewhere else. I knew he was going to flirt with other teams and they were going to make offers, and the Giants were in on him, hometown team.
That was the only one, because I think that's where he's from, right?
But man, like I never had a thought that he was going to end up anywhere else but the Yankees. I thought he'll go back there, and sure enough, he did. With Ohtani, it's completely different. I would be so shocked if he ends up back with the Angels. I think that he's going to go and try to find somewhere else to go with this long, ton of money contract and a team that can build around him to go win a bunch of championships. That's the goal. And it's not happened so far with the Angels. So in his mind, I would think, why would you ever have any indication that it's going to be different?
Well, because it's not because they don't spend. They just don't get it right a lot.
Right. It's hard to have a lot of trust in that franchise.
Oh, man. It's going to be, if your team has interest, this is going to be a stressful summer, right? It's going to be a long baseball, off season, not summer, but off season. And what do the Angels do? I think I just would love to know what the trade market is for Shohei Ohtani on a rental. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain that if you're the Angels, you pull the trigger.
I think so too. I think you have to. I mean,
because
again,
unless
I
the trade market's not there. Unless the trade market's not there, or you think you can re-sign him legitimately.
Yeah. Even if only one of those is true, I still think you pull the trigger. Even if the trade market isn't outstanding for him, I think you try to get something in return for him, because I don't think he's going back to LA.
Well, it doesn't matter what we think. It only matters what he thinks, and they probably have a better indication in reality than anybody on the outside does. And I know the reporting's been that he won't go back there. I would, if I'm the Angels, I need to hear that from his people. And that's okay. Like, I think you're to the point in the relationship where you can, like, why would both parties there not want to be honest about that? Right? Like, Shohei, we want you back, obviously. Here's where we're going to get in a contract. Are you, like, is that even on your radar? Because if it's not, we'll try to get you to a place where you can try to go win a championship this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can have that conversation if you're the Angels. One thing we do know, the Royals are not going to be in on Shohei Ohtani.
They're not?
They will not be.
Shocking.
I don't know. You're trying to build a new ballpark downtown. I think if John Sherman ponied up to bring in Shohei Ohtani, he could probably get a ballpark built the next
Can you
day.
imagine, like, the listing of free agents that John Sherman, under his ownership, had brought in? You've got Franmil Reyes, Jackie Bradley Jr.,
Jordan
and
Lyles.
Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
Jordan Lyles and Shohei Ohtani.
By the way, it looks like Jordan Lyles and I saw somebody put this out yesterday. Jordan Lyles and McClanahan are going to face off Sunday in like 100-degree humid weather.
Ugh.
And somebody was like, anybody that like is willing to go sit through that deserves to be in a mental institution. And I'm like, come on now, let's be real. They beat Shane McClanahan last time they played. You know, if you're looking for a reason to go see if they can beat Shane McClanahan. Royals will be back on the air, by the way, here tonight and the trade deadline. Again, we've said it. Here we go. I think there are two big things for the Royals. Trade deadline and Bobby Witt Jr. continuing to stay hot, heat up, and I guess prove the doubters wrong. I just don't understand why they're doubters. But 869-1240 is the number to call. We'll come back. Sports Daily rolling forward on this Friday with Albracht and Castor. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Did you see Craig Porter Jr. last night for the Cavs in the Summer League? Got a start for the Cavs and took advantage. 22 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, 3 steals, and a block. Tommy, it's his rebounding and defense that I think makes him very, very, very interesting as an NBA prospect. Have always thought that. But if he can throw up 22 points to go along with it, I don't care if it's the Summer League. That is a significant moment in the early going for Craig Porter Jr. and his chances to make his way into the NBA.
When we've watched him last season for Wichita State, there were certainly flashes where for several minutes at a time, you would look at him and think that kid's going to be an NBA player. I mean, just the dynamic, shot making ability, the energy level, all of those things. There were multiple plays during the season where it was like, man, okay, like we can watch this kid play with the best of them. Then there were other moments where that wasn't so much. And so I think that the consistency is important, but even though he went undrafted, signing those two-way contracts, it allows you to showcase those skills. It allows you to get on with the roster, prove yourself a little bit, and show that you're worthy of, playing on a consistent basis in the NBA. That's a great stat line for him. It's going to be important, I think, for Porter to back that up and have other nights like that too. Because again, it goes back to the overall consistency. Can he play at an NBA level night in and night out? And at least the example from last night shows that he can. But I want to see it more often. I think he can do that.
Yeah, I think he can too. It was when he was blocking shots at such a high level.
Yeah.
Where I was like, man, he's just like, he's seeing this at a different level than his peers to be able to anticipate and block like that. That's where it really, like, it was those other things he did. I don't know what kind of score what I have a hard time with a lot of the time is like how do scores translate. I don't know. Cause like Fred VanVleet, I never would have seen coming into the NBA as a, 20 to 22 point a game scorer based on what we saw at Wichita State. Now, nobody ever really scored at a high clip in Greg Marshall's offenses. But even then, like, it's hard to, like, I have a hard time wondering, like, how does Craig Porter's offense translate in the NBA? But what always stood out to me was, boy, that defense translates. That rebounding, that prowess, because he's got like such a brain for the game, and you have to be a point guard that can block shots and rebound. I mean, he's 6'2", but he plays so big, right? He plays like he's 6'5", and so he's an interesting player, and we'll watch. And look, in the Summer League right now, guys are getting shut down, so you're still just like among your peers here. It's not like Craig Porter, I don't think, is going to all of a sudden catapult his way onto the Cavs roster right away. But if he can continue this, and just get that opportunity at some point, that's what you need to have. It's what Fred VanVleet did, right? It's what Ron Baker did. And it worked for those guys. So we'll see. What do you think about shutting down? Speaking of, Chet Holmgren had a nice summer. A lot of people, I don't think he's been shut down yet, but everyone's just sort of waiting for the time that happens. And of course, Wembanyama's been shut down. But Chet Holmgren played 2 nights ago, 25, 9, and 5 blocks. He still hasn't put on a ton of weight even with the injury, but man, he's looking good. Chet Holmgren is. And if he's good, how good is Oklahoma City? Because they were, everybody feels like they've got all this great young talent. Anyway, they didn't even have him last year. And he was because I was a bit of a doubter with Chet Holmgren. I'll admit it, because I didn't know, and it hasn't. So far, I've been right because I just didn't know how his body would hold up. But boy, ability wise, he looks good.
Yeah, and they've got like a bazillion first round draft picks for like between now and 2090. It seems like. I mean, that's what Sam Presti does, just like stockpiles draft picks. But if you've got Holmgren playing, at the level that he is expected to play at, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the best players in the league right now, and definitely one of the best scorers for sure. I think that there's that potential there. I mean, they're incredibly young. I looked at their roster a couple of weeks ago. I think they had one player over the age of 27. Like everybody else is super, super young.
Yeah.
But man, they're all really, really talented too. So you've got a young core. It's just going to be a question of whether or not they're all able to come together and actually win. That's where you might miss a veteran presence a little bit on that roster, the experience to win. But man, there's a lot of talent on that team.
What I saw somebody throw it out there the other day. What if, like, why not go get Damian Lillard? If you're the Thunder and Chet Holmgren's really good and you got all these picks, why not go get Damian Lillard?
Yeah, but that never fits the MO of Sam Presti. Like he wants those picks. He covets those picks. He doesn't give them up. He doesn't use them really, at least
it's so hard to
as
get
memory
guys
serves
to
to go
sign
and
in free agency.
trade.
I get it. I get it. I don't know. They're an interesting team. Chet Holmgren stood out to me. Are you good though with those guys getting shut down? I think I would too.
Well, look, it begs the question to me, and I've asked this before: is there even a point to this summer league? I mean, I understand you've got players that are on two-way contracts that are like we just talked about Craig Porter, but I don't know. It's like Wembanyama played 2 games and then they shut him down. Why even play any at all? Like just let him make his debut in the NBA.
Well,
let him train, let him practice, let him scrimmage, but you don't even need to put him. I feel like you're just risking it at that point. Same thing with Holmgren. Like I don't see a need for the summer league to be the spectacle that it is.
I think you'd like to see how comfortable he can get. And if he's comfortable, then you shut it down. But I don't have a problem with getting comfortable in the summer league. By the way, Grady Dick last night, 22 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, a couple threes. They brought up the point, I believe, in the broadcast too, that he's not just a 3-point shooter. He was more versatile last night, which we've said from the beginning. Like that's why we liked Toronto as a fit, because I think he will get a little room to show off some of that other stuff that he did at Sunrise that made him the National Player of the Year. Which again, I say this all the time to people: go look at the list of Gatorade National Players of the Year. Go look at that list and look at that company. What Grady did at Sunrise was very different than what Grady did at KU. Just out of necessity at KU, no problem with it at all. But I think Toronto, what if we, the floor on Grady Dick is super high, and his ceiling is super high. And we're going to start to. So you want to know where the summer league
what
comes
do you
in?
think what do you think that ceiling is for Grady Dick? I mean, is it perennial all-star? Is that what we're looking at? You think?
Yeah, I think that's a ceiling. Yes, I do, because of his size. Like his size. If he's going to play the 2, which I think he will. I mean, maybe he'll play the 3, but I think he'll play the 2 with his size. Yeah, because he is such a great shooter. But what people don't realize is how explosive an athlete he is. And he's going to, you want to know what's good about the summer league is he's going to have more of a chance to show that to the Raptors, right, than he would maybe in the regular season if he didn't have the summer league. Because if he didn't have the summer league to go show games like he had last night, then maybe he starts his career and they're like, we just want you to shoot the ball. We want you to shoot the ball and work on your defense, like work on playing defense. But the reality is that what needs to happen with Grady Dick, and look, they may be doing this. I have no idea. The reality is you need to be saying, you need to just continue to work on being our number 1 scoring option. Like, because that's your trajectory, right? Is a number 1 scoring option. Go work on all of that. It seems to me, that you can do that a little more easily when you see it in the summer league than if you bring in this guy that everyone thinks is just a great shooter, which he is, but he's so much more than that. In the regular season from game 1, I would suspect if this keeps up in the summer league, he'll have a much longer leash than he would have once the regular season actually starts.
I can see that, and I can understand the importance in draft picks and undrafted free agents that are on rosters showing more to the franchises that have either picked them or signed them. I get all of that. I understand it. I think you can show some of that in a way that doesn't require like an actual game necessarily. Scrimmages or what. I mean, I think that there are other ways that you can show that out. I guess my thing, and I've mentioned this before, I'm just fatigued by the NBA. Like you crown the winner, and then you go right into the summer league and you got the draft in there. And I'm like, I just kind of need a break. And so like, it's nice to see the stat lines of what Grady Dick did. And I know Jalen Wilson had a game winner last night for Brooklyn and Craig Porter Jr. and all, like, I saw a clip of Marquise Noel shooting one from, God, I don't know, 40 feet and bricking it. Like it's entertaining, I suppose. Interesting to see that. But I just get kind of tired of it. I'm like, can I get a break from professional basketball for a second?
It is. I've been to the summer league a long time ago, believe it or not. It just at random. I was at I don't know, I was in college and I was at like a sports caster camp, which was a blast, man. It was so much fun. But a part of that was going to the summer league and calling games. And so I've been in the environment. It's fun. Like, it's a really cool environment. The summer league is. I'm not watching the games, so I guess I'm not really fatigued by it, but it does like allow this. How are our guys going to hold up here? And so far, I feel like it's been really, really well. And it doesn't take much for a guy like Grady Dick. Like, look, you want Craig Porter to get every minute in the summer league he can possibly get. Marquise Noel, every minute they can possibly get. Heck, even Jalen Wilson to some degree, right? Keontae Johnson. For Grady Dick, you need one or two more performances like you saw last night. And I'd be content if they're like, all right, that's enough for Grady Dick. Like we clearly, like, that's in the tank. We'll tap into that a little bit later, but let's be careful now because he was a lottery pick. And for that franchise that's rebuilding, I mean, you can make a case right now that Grady Dick's the future of that franchise. Like, that's what's on the table for him. And that's cool, man. That is incredible to see. We all thought we might get 1 year out of Grady Dick. Definitely not. Like, and NBA Summer League performances like that remind you of why that is. Like, okay, like that, this guy's got a chance to be a star. 869-1240, the number to call. We'll come back. More Sports Daily on a Friday right after this. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Tommy, have you checked out this quarterback thing on Netflix that everybody's talking about today?
I've not had a chance to watch any of it. It's been a wild and crazy, wacky week in my life, and so it's on the list. My wife texted me the other day and said she was super excited to watch it. She loves Brittany. Like, she follows Brittany on Instagram. She knows more about Brittany than I probably do about Patrick. She talks about Brittany like she knows
Brittany
her.
A part of this thing?
Yes. Yeah. She's, my understanding is yes. That it kind of goes into their home lives and all of that. So she is super excited to watch it, but we've not had a chance to yet.
I'll have to tell my wife that she may feel the same way. I'll watch it. Like I guess I didn't quite realize it was coming up like that, but I see everybody talking about it today, and he was on CBS this morning, and it became the #1 show on Netflix, which should surprise none of us. Patrick Mahomes, man, like a dude, I saw him jump into a long drive competition yesterday and like hit a 320-yard bomb. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know how, like you said, it's crazy in your life. It's like, I can't imagine like compartmentalizing my brain that much that way. Like seemingly simple things happen to us, and it like totally derails
for sure
a week. And that same stuff happens to these guys, and they still just like to stay that laser focused, man. It's crazy.
They've got like, they got assistants and like people to handle all that for them, which is nice. I mean, I don't know if you remember the book when we were kids. It was, and I think it was made into a movie, that Alexander and the No Good, Terrible, Horrible, Bad Day, or whatever it was.
Very Bad Day. Yeah.
That's been my week. Basically, it's been just insane. We're working on a project on our backyard, our deck, which is being worked on now. So that's good and planned, but I mean, it's hectic with all of that. We discovered a leaky dishwasher on Tuesday. So there's water damage in our basement. So we've had a restoration company out blowing industrial fans to try to dry things out. Plumbers have been out. Insurance adjusters have been out. And then on top of it all, my wife's, the AC in my wife's car went out. And so I had to take her car to the shop. So it's like when it rains, it pours. It's one thing after another. Of course, the hottest days of the year, all, happening at the same time. I'm ready for this week to be over.
I hear you. And it does. Why does it do that? Like, why does it all come at once? But I suppose if it all comes at once, then it's all done at once. And then you got smooth sailing. Like, we're down a microwave this week, and it's a pain enough. Like,
I don't even want to hear it.
I can't imagine being down a kitchen. Right. Yeah. Like, it's like, we've had that happen to us. We've had that happen to us a couple of times, by the way, for different reasons, being down a kitchen. And when you've got young kids, not only does it suck, because of course it does, like, it's expensive when you're like, well, God, I can't really cook anything. So now we got to go eat somewhere. And you do that like 5 nights in a row, and you're just like, like, this is killing me.
The worst part about it for us is that, we've got these industrial fans that are blowing to try to dry out where we have the leak. But it's not like it's blowing out cool air. It's blowing out hot air. Our air conditioner in our house is working overtime. On Wednesday, when the heat index was like 113 and the hot air blowing in our house, there was no way our air conditioner could keep up. It was like 83 degrees inside of our house. And, it's not like we have a toddler and a newborn. So it has been absolutely chaos this entire week.
Well, next week will be a new week, and it'll be great. And it'll be, it'll all start looking up. I want to invite everybody here to join me this weekend. So tomorrow, and I'm looking at our weekend schedule that Jad sent over, and I'll go over that in just a minute. But tomorrow, I think here locally, you'll have it the whole way. I'll be on CBS Sports Radio across the country, which is always fun. But it'll be 11 to 4 here in our time zone, and the Royals don't start till 6 on a Saturday. So it should be one of the few times lately that we've been able to do that all the way through. So join in on that. You can call, you can talk to people all across the country. It's pretty cool. So join for that again, 11 to 4 tomorrow on that shift. The Royals do get going again tomorrow, 6 o'clock. What level of winning, Tommy, for the Royals would get you excited? Like, would it take a 10-game win streak? Would it take
a 50-game win streak? Maybe. No, I mean, look, they're so far under 500 that even a 10-game winning streak doesn't do anything for you, outside of maybe like individual flashes, because you'd have to have some really good individual performers to make that happen. So I could get behind a handful of guys like turning it around and playing really well and maybe increasing their value before the trade deadline. But as far as like getting excited about the team and their prospects, no, a 10-game winning streak really, that's not going to do anything. I don't think anything really will.
I agree. I think something that could, and I'm with you, is Bobby Witt Jr. continuing. Maybe Michael Garcia still looks, and maybe like Prado gets it turned around. And they're like, okay, we got Pascantino coming back, and one of these pitchers, heats up a little bit and something clicks. Okay. Well, at least we have, because there's not going to be any level of winning that does it. I think I'm with you.
And I don't think they can do this, but if they can play 500 ball the rest of the way, then
but
at least I think.
But don't you think that would still feel so bad because they're so far below? Like I would rather them play and not win a ton of games, but those guys individually play better than just playing 500 baseball, because 500 baseball is still going to feel
right. But what I'm
like
saying is that if they can at least play
500.
if they can at least play 500 ball the rest of the way, then I think that you can have maybe something more to build on going into next season, at least emotionally. If they, win at the same clip that they did in the first half of the season, then, man, you're looking at maybe an all-time loss record. They got to do everything that they can to avoid that.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, at least at that point, you'd know there's nowhere to go but up next year, right? Like it won't be as bad as it was in 2023.
I don't know. We said that last year about 2022.
We said that we set that loss record, but hey, we're better than that. So maybe, you set the bar low enough and you can do nothing but, succeed. All right, 869-1240. That's the number. Put in your speed dial for next week. We'll come back. We'll give you what's on tap on the network today and through the weekend when Sports Daily wraps up.
Attention.
All right, everybody, that's it for us here on this week of Sports Daily, a regular day of programming here, including locally here, Bob and Jeff from 2 to 4. You've got the Royals at 7 o'clock getting the unofficial second half underway after the All-Star break against the Rays. They'll be in action 6 o'clock, 1 o'clock coverage start times Saturday and Sunday. Again, you'll have me on CBS Sports Radio nationally, including here in Wichita from 11 to 4 tomorrow. Join me for that. We'll be talking some college football. Looking forward to a lot of things there. For Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers, I'm Jacob Albracht. That does it for another week of Sports Daily. We'll see you Monday.